Margo. Hello and good day. I am excited to visit with you about summer book reads. As we begin to wind down our quarter and the kids get out of school, it's time to go to the lake or river, and I wanted to share with you a few of my favorite book reads. First up is Indigenous Feminism. We'll start with The Lakota Woman. Lakota Woman was gifted to me by Jeff, and it's a story of Mary Crow Dog. She was the wife of Leonard Crow Dog. She gave birth at Wounded Knee, and she really tells the story of the government agents right up into the Battle of Wounded Knee and how the tribal community was affected. And it's really from a tribal woman's perspective. So I highly recommend The Lakota Woman, the story of Mary Crow Dog. So check that one out. It's been around since about 1990, but it's always one of my favorite. One of the books I haven't read, but I'm really looking forward to as soon as I get done with teaching my classes, is Reproduction on the Reservation. Reproduction on the Reservation is about pregnancy, childbirth, colonialism in the 20th century. Brianna Theobald really did a nice case study and went through the historical records looking at Indigenous women and how our reproduction was controlled through colonization. Really tells the story. American Indian Studies at EWU invited her to speak this spring. So I'm really looking forward to Brianna Theobald. Next, I want to dive into a little bit of history, local history. We worked really hard this last fall on changing the name from George Wright Drive to Huistox Way. Of course, there were Native students and Native faculty and staff, Barry Moses, Sulu Stu, and Pam Austin, along with years of Red Nation students that worked really hard to change the name. So I'm recommending the book, Hang Them All, The Story of George Wright and the Plateau Indian War. This is by Donald Cutler, with a foreword by Lori Arnold, a Colville tribal member. But this really tells kind of the brutal truth of Fort George Wright and what he did to our Indigenous people here in the greater Spokane area, the Spokanes, the Yakimas, the Palouse, the Coeur d'Alenes, and it really tells the story. And so I recommend that by Don Cutler. Again, that's Hang Them All. Next, I recommend Finding Chief Kamiakin, The Life and Legacy of the Northwest of a Northwest Patriot. This is by Richard D. Sherman and our very own Michael O'Finley. Mike Finley, of course, is a Colville tribal member. He got his master's degree of history at Eastern Washington University. There are other books on Kamiakin and Alhi, A.J. Splon, namely, but really by our own Native authors, Chief Kamiakin, The Life and Legacy of a Northwest Patriot. So it's been really fun reading about our local history and our own local Indian heroes, Kamiakin, Qualshan, Alhi, our Yakima warriors that joined us right here in our own battles. Next, for a little bit of, addiction studies and treatment, many of us deal with these issues, and it's really hard to understand what our people are going through. So first, I highly recommend Dreamland. I have the book. This is also the audio book. And I will just say that I highly recommend Audible. We drive a lot back and forth to our reservations for sports events, for ceremonies. So I highly recommend Audible. You just pop it. You can load it on your phone. You get the app. I think it's $13 a month. But and I'm not getting any royalties, but I really enjoy listening to some of these books audio, and I'll give you some more examples. But Dreamland is really the story of America's opioid epidemic. Sam Quinones really talks about some of the Mexico cartel and how they learned how to deliver drugs, like from Domino's Pizza theory. You text a number and it's delivered. And you see all of these deliveries of opioid and heroin, but it really tells the story, and you begin to understand how the pharmaceutical company really pulled the wool over America's eyes. They sold these prescription drugs to doctors, and they really unethical marketing strategies. And so I highly recommend. And Sam Quinones just does some amazing research. The second book that I also recommend in addiction and treatment and understanding some of our addiction issues is Dope Sick. Dealers, Doctors, and the Drug Company That Addicted America. This book is by Beth Macy. She really gives you a firsthand account. She works with a lot of families throughout the Appalachia, and it really tells you how the opioid epidemic affected not just people of color or poor people, but white middle-class America right into the Appalachias. And so I highly recommend this book, Dope Sick by Beth Macy. I'm going to keep moving along. There's a lot of really good books out here. And this is an older, but oldie but a goodie. Louise Eldridge, it's been around for a little bit. It's called The Roundhouse. It's a novel. It's all about, jurisdiction. It's about our tribal communities. It's about murdered, missing Indigenous women, violence against tribal women. It really gives you insight into federal Indian law and how complicated it is for federal authorities to get perpetrators of violence in our tribal communities. It's also a coming-of-age novel. Joe is a young man, and his mother goes through some troubling times. His dad is a Baptiste, is a tribal court judge, and it has all of our stories from enrollment to non-Indians coming on the reservation, but it's really well written. Louise Eldridge, The Roundhouse. And I also recommend this in Audible. If you look up Audible, there are some books that are read by the authors. For example, Barack Obama, or if you look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg's novel or her book, they will have speeches included by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So you have the actual author reading you the book, or you're hearing their speeches and voice, and it really brings it home. In Louise Eldridge, they hired the native actor Gary Farmer, right, from Smoke Signals. So it's just like one of your cousins. Guy is Guy or Stephen for me, but one of your cousins are reading this book to you. So it's just really fun. It's a great summer read, and it really gives you insight into federal Indian law and tribal jurisdiction. Next, also kind of violence against women, murdered, missing Indigenous women, Highway of Tears. Highway of Tears is by Jessica McDermott. It's really the true story of racism, indifference, and the pursuit of justice for murdered, missing Indigenous women and girls. This story is in Canada, takes place in Canada, and really tells the story of First Nations. But it's very similar to what we deal with here in the United States. The book is very intriguing. The perpetrators are not only a serial killer or young white males, but also judges and police officers. And so it really tells the story, and it tells the story of the warrior women who stand up and say no more, who fight for their daughters and their nieces to get justice, to find the perpetrator, because we see in Canada that there was lots of law enforcement that really weren't pursuing the perpetrators, and so lots of Indigenous women were going missing. Lastly, and not leastly, is one of my favorites. I just started reading this. This is The Firekeepers Daughter. It is written by Angeline Bowley, again, another Indigenous author. It's about 18-year-old Donis Fontaine. It talks about the Ojibwe reservation, Anishinaabe. Lots of Indian humor. Funny aunties that just talk crazy. It makes me laugh out loud. It also has some intrigue. She meets somebody, and then she witnesses a shocking murder, and she's thrust into an FBI investigation and there's a lethal new drug on the reservation. So it really walks through the life of Donis Fontaine. It's really fun. It's written by an educator. The author, Angeline Boley, is an enrolled member of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of the Chippewa, and she writes about the reservation in the Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe. So I highly, highly recommend Firekeepers Daughter. It's a page turner. I'm controlling myself because I still have some more work to do before we get into summer. But I'm really enjoying it, and I highly recommend it. So these are just a few of the books that I wanted to share. It's getting that time where we can grab our book bag and head out to the lake or the river. So please let me know what some of your favorite reads are. I'm looking forward to a great summer of reading. And some of our Indigenous authors, we've got to promote some of our authors like Walter Echohawk and, of course, Tommy Orange with There. Again, one of my favorites by Urban Indians. So lots of great reads for Indian country. So thanks for joining us and watching the video. And give me a shout out. Let me know what you're reading this summer. Lem Lemp Shlichalacht. Thank you.